This is CBC Saturday News.
Good evening, I'm Talia Ricci. It's been nearly 24 hours and crews continue to battle a massive fire at a flower farm in St. Catharines. Some residents have been told to stay indoors as large amounts of smoke blanket the area. Angelina King has more on the devastating damage at Pioneer Flower Farms.
Because of the scope of the fire, a large amount of the area here has been blocked off. So this is about as close as we can get to. The fire is now contained. It took crews about 18 hours to do that, but there's still a lot of smoke in the area. I'm standing more than 1 kilometer away from the fire and I can really smell the smoke here. I can almost taste it and feel it. It speaks to just how massive this fire was. The smoke took over the sky, visible from 15 kilometers away as flames tore through Pioneer Flower Farm in St. Catharines late last night. About 120 firefighters from 5 departments battled the stubborn flames. Since there are no hydrants in the area, outside tankers were called in. John Van Geest owns the greenhouse across the road and says a group of neighbors, including the farm's owners, were celebrating an anniversary when they saw the smoke.
We helped unload the house when it looked like we could prevent the fire spreading.
St. Catharines acting fire chief says the fire started in a greenhouse which collapsed, making it difficult for crews to get to it. Then it spread, causing a significant bushfire. It destroyed around 5 buildings where migrant workers stay.
Their hearts were just so sad today as they face the prospect of having lost jobs, and not only and many of them lost possessions that they had been accumulating over the last while to bring back to Mexico with them.
Nobody was hurt, but today smoke remains a concern. Nearby residents told to stay indoors with their windows closed and air conditioning turned off.
This is insane.
Bill Van Vliet took this video.
Flames shooting in the air, fire tornadoes. It was an incredible sight. I've never seen anything like it. It was like a bomb went off.
The farm is one of the largest bulb growing operations in North America. The acting fire chief says about 700,000 square feet of greenhouse space caught fire.
This would be the most significant fire that I've had in my 33-year career.
Van Geest says the owners are particularly concerned about their employees as they work on how to move forward from this.
It's devastating to see them lose what they've worked the last 48 years to build up.
Crews are still on scene here. They've actually brought in a drone to get an aerial view of the fire. The acting chief says it's too early right now to say exactly how the fire started or how much the damage will cost. But when you're talking about a family business and someone's livelihood, it's hard to put a price tag on that.
Thanks, Angelina. A tense weekend of protests took place in Hong Kong again today, but here at home, 2 groups organized a march around Old City Hall this afternoon to demonstrate against what they claim is harsh treatment of peaceful protesters in Hong Kong. The 2 groups clashing at times. One of the groups were calling for the resignation of Hong Kong's leader. Similar rallies were also held across the country in places like Vancouver and Calgary. We'll bring you the latest from the streets of Hong Kong a little later in the show. The mayor of Ottawa is coming out today writing in a newspaper editorial that he's gay. Jim Watson says he wishes he'd let the public know sooner, but he also says that young people shouldn't let themselves be pressured to come out before they're ready. The CBC's Kimberly Molina spoke with him today.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson has been taking part in the Pride Parade for years, but this year he'll be doing it as an openly gay man. He says he knew he was gay when he was a teenager, and he's been thinking about coming out for a long time. He hopes now that he has, his message resonates with those who may be struggling to decide whether to come out themselves.
Hopefully it'll make it easier for some young people who, are having doubts about whether they should say anything. And I guess my message is, don't be afraid to come out, don't feel rushed, but don't take 40 years either.
Watson says the reaction has been mostly positive. Politicians and the public alike commending him for his brave announcement.
I was really happy for him, and I'm happy for our city because young queer and trans youth need role models, and the mayor just made himself one today.
The city has responded in a way that really is so heartwarming, so I am very, very happy for him.
Watson says society is a lot more accepting of people in the LGBT community than it was decades ago. But there have been times where he's felt negativity and pressure from others to rush his decision to come out.
You know, the last couple of years, you know, I've come across incidents, for instance, one gentleman in Confederation Park, I was walking back from lunch to City Hall, and this guy came up and said, I hope you're not going on the fag parade, you know, making a derogatory comment about the Pride parade. And then the last couple of years, you know, along the parade route, I've had some people say, when are you coming out of the closet? You know, and yell that at me. And I pretended not to hear and waved with the music. And I thought, you know, nothing to be ashamed of. Just do it.
Capital Pride kicks off tomorrow with the parade next Sunday. Kimberly Molina, CBC News, Ottawa.
And Toronto Mayor John Tory tweeted out his support for Mayor Watson today. He says Jim Watson has spent his life helping others, and he is doing that again today. I'm proud to call him my friend. Ottawa is lucky to have him. Amanda Weldon joins us now for a first look at our forecast. And Amanda, it would have been a wet start to the day if anyone was at the CNE.
Oh yeah, Talia, what are you looking forward to the most for the CNE this year?
Not the food. I'm honestly a little turned off by the idea of a rainbow grilled cheese, but honestly like to go and take pictures of the people and people watch.
Well, with thunderstorms rolling on through, we've got normal rainbows for you then, Talia,
nice.
Okay? Sunday and Monday, you can see that. By Tuesday, nice and clear, 28 degrees, feels like 31. You will notice a little bit of that humidex cut on down Sunday morning. This is what we're getting into already with those showers, 20 degrees, feeling like 22, but by the afternoon, feels like 34. We still very much have that heat in place, and today even we had severe thunderstorm warnings in place just earlier in the afternoon. By the evening, you could still be seeing some of that redevelopment behind the front. So let's nerd out just a little bit. Why are we seeing these strong storms today? Well, we actually had what is called lake breeze convergence. So off of those lake breezes, you can see that nice development of those clouds according to this satellite, and it's the flow aloft closer to the surface, and then as well in the upper atmosphere causing that shear. So different directions, rotating cells, and we were seeing some supercell development north of the city of Toronto. We just got severe thunderstorm warnings today. However, throughout Sunday morning, you do see some passing showers, redevelopment behind it. So even if you do get a shower, kind of like today, and you have clearing behind it, you could get another round later in the afternoon, evening after we have some of that daytime heating. So taking a look at the risk graphic throughout our Saturday, we definitely got into some of this, and we are going to be talking a little bit more later in the show when we come back to you, Talia, about what's to come this week and tomorrow's thunderstorm risk.
Thanks for that, Amanda.
No problem.
And a little rain didn't stop Torontonians from gathering at Exhibition Place to honor veterans of the First and Second World Wars at the 98th Annual Warriors' Day Parade.
I come to these parades every year, and I wouldn't want to miss it for anything. Nice to get together with all the boys.
About 2,000 people marched in this year's parade, which commemorates the day veterans returned home from the First World War. Hundreds more watched from the stands as the procession made its way through the Canadian National Exhibition grounds. The parade has been held at the CNE every year since 1921. This year's focus was the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And it's opening weekend. The X has lots to offer attendees, even if the weather isn't great. We decided to have a look at some of the exhibits you can still enjoy on a rainy day. Daniel Clark has that story.
Part of our job here is to make sure everyone has fun all the time. So it's raining, we have lots of indoor activity. If you're a gamer of any sort, we have the best weekend for you. We have dozens and dozens of games that you can try out. We have some of the traditional retro games, so Pac-Man and Galaga are there, pinball, which is what I grew up with.
The gaming garage attracts as many as 60,000 people in a weekend.
The Just Dance thing, it's not really competition, but I have a kick watching parents and grandparents dancing with the kids. The kids usually pick the song, so the parents and grandparents are having a bit of a challenge, but it's a lot of fun to watch. We have a great relationship with the Mississaugas at the Credit. In the last 2 years, they put together a fantastic exhibit of their history and their culture.
If you feel like shopping, the Enercare Center is full of vendors. Or you can walk down to Hall D and watch the Super Dogs and their Abracadabark program. It's usually a packed audience, and like most exhibits here, free with admission. The show runs through September 2nd with performances from lunchtime till 7 p.m. And as for the rides,
As soon as there's a weather warning, we shut down anything that may be affected by winds. If we know there's a lightning warning, again, people will come into the building. And then as soon as it's cleared, again, we just say to people, you're more than welcome to go out.
food, shopping, culture, animals, and games. Something for everyone, even if it's stormy. Daniel Clark, CBC News, Toronto.
The federal food safety watchdog says it's recalling a certain brand of baby food due to the possibility of insects being in the product. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says it's recalling Kraft Heinz Canada Turkey Stew product for babies over 8 months. The agency says the baby food was sold in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, and Newfoundland and Labrador. There's been no reported illnesses, but the agency says the product should not be consumed and should be thrown out or returned to the store where it was purchased.
But there are certain losses, certain pain, that even time has difficulty healing.
Still ahead, a ceremony is held to mark the rededication of the Kandahar Cenotaph. Friends and families of those who died during Canada's military mission in Afghanistan are finally getting the chance to publicly honor their loved ones. Plus, the wave of political protests gripping Hong Kong remain in full swing this weekend. This one featuring about 1,000 teachers demanding government reforms. We'll take you to the streets of Hong Kong coming up. There was a rededication ceremony in Ottawa today for a cenotaph honoring Canadian soldiers killed during the Afghanistan mission. The original ceremony last May came under criticism for not including family members. The CBC's military specialist Murray Brewster was at today's event.
The rededication was a very moving and emotional experience for both families and for veterans of the Afghan war. Nearly 700 family members were here for the outdoor service, along with hundreds of veterans. The rain held off long enough for a helicopter and a Hercules aircraft fly past. Governor General Julie Payette spoke eloquently, and I would suggest that everyone here today spoke from the heart.
Those who went to Afghanistan gave up the bonds of family and love, the safety of home, the attempt to bring a lasting peace to a place that badly needed it. In a very real way, what they did was an act of love. In the words of St. John, there is no greater love than this, that a person would lay down his life for others and the sake of his friends.
Families who'd been excluded from an earlier ceremony in May were prepared to let bygones be bygones. They spoke about feeling the spirit of their loved ones as they stepped into the building alongside other family members. The Cenotaph stood outside of the Canadian headquarters in Kandahar throughout the war. It was a place where soldiers could mourn their fallen comrades. But the country's top military commander, General Jonathan Vance, who served twice as combat commander, said it's also a place of reflection, where he felt the eyes of the fallen looking down on them and urging them to continue on. D&D says the building will be open for public tours by appointment. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
As we told you earlier in the show, the protests in Hong Kong continue to intensify. Thousands of protesters flooding the streets today as 11 weeks of demonstrations continued. Rallies held earlier in the day were not met with police force, but as night fell, tensions again flared between protesters and riot police. The CBC's Chris Brown has the latest from Hong Kong.
Really has been like a game of cat and mouse today out in the streets of Hong Kong. This is Nathan Road, one of the busiest ones, and you can see people running past us, and where exactly they're going, it's very unclear, but what they're running from, that is much more obvious. You can see the police lights down there. That's a row of riot squad, probably about 100, maybe even 200 now, walking this way, and they've been chasing protesters for a couple of kilometers now, it seems, ever since the end of a legal protest on the other side of Kowloon. It ended, and then different groups dispersed around town, and this is sort of the mop-up operation. It got very tense there for a while, with lasers being pointed at people, at the police screaming back, urging people to disperse. It's not been like that everywhere today. There have been other quieter protests involving teachers. We've seen pro-government protests on the street, but here in Kowloon, this has really been an example of the kinds of protests, the kinds of confrontations that we've seen in Hong Kong, started by the pro-democracy movement, and they claim there really is no other way to make their point other than for these confrontations with police to happen. Chris Brown, CBC News, Hong Kong.
A major summit in Geneva is trying to save endangered wildlife. Elephants, sharks, and other animals are facing a serious threat to their populations, and officials are stepping in. The CBC's Dominic Velitis has more from our London bureau.
Well, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species is held every 3 years, and its aim is to ensure that international trade in wild animals and plants does not threaten their survival. And over the next 12 days or so, delegates from more than 180 countries will consider a record 56 proposals to change, mostly strengthen, the level of protection given to vulnerable or endangered species. Now, although there are likely to be significant debates over a number of threatened species and how best to protect them, it is the African elephant that is set to dominate these talks. There are several nations, Zambia one example, which are calling for the protection of their elephants to be downgraded to allow the trade in ivory to be reopened on the grounds that their numbers have stabilised or even increased. Other countries, though, such as Kenya, are demanding the animal is afforded the fullest possible protection and a complete ban on the ivory trade is introduced. Now, generally, African elephants have seen a huge decline in numbers over the past 20 years. Indeed, a study published in 2016 estimated that up to 40,000 were killed by poachers every single year. And it's thought there are only about 400,000 left in total. So Africa is facing this internal debate at the moment about its elephants and the ivory trade, which is likely to be played out at this convention over the coming days. And of course, these talks are being held in the wake of that UN report warning that extinction is looming for more than 1 million species of plants and animals. And environmentalists are saying that now is simply not the time to be considering trade in any endangered species, including the African elephant. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
Hollywood is mourning the loss of a rebel. Peter Fonda was known as a counterculture icon. One of his most famous movies was countercult classic Easy Rider. The actor was 79. The CBC's Stephanie Skandaris explains how far his legacy reached.
Peter Fonda's family says he died peacefully Friday morning at his home in LA of respiratory failure due to lung cancer. He was 79 years old, but he was born into Hollywood royalty, the son of actor Henry Fonda and Frances Ford Seymour, a U.S. socialite originally from Brockville, Ontario. Sister Jane Fonda released a statement saying, "He was my sweet-hearted baby brother, the talker of the family. He went out laughing." Peter Fonda was most well known for his role in Easy Rider. He co-wrote, produced, and starred alongside Dennis Hopper as a pair of biker hippies on a U.S. road trip. It earned Fonda one of 2 Oscar nominations and made him a pop culture icon, known for being nonconformist and anti-establishment. Easy Rider came out 50 years ago in 1969, the same year as another touchstone of the 1960s counterculture movement, Woodstock, the event that's said to have defined a generation. At this time, half a century ago, more than 400,000 people were gathered in a farmer's field in upstate New York, listening to acts like Janis Joplin, The Who, Grateful Dead, and Jimi Hendrix, to name just a few. Over this weekend, there is a tribute event at the site of the original festival in Bethel, New York. Ringo Starr is one of the performers, so are Santana and Arlo Guthrie, who both played the original Woodstock, allowing fans to relive all that peace, love, and tie-dye 50 years later. Stephanie Skandaris, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto-born animator Richard Williams has died. The Oscar winner helped revitalize Disney's animation department in the 1980s. Best known for his work as a director of the animation for the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, released in 1988. It married live-action cinema and cartoons. The result was a commercial and critical hit. Williams died from cancer at his home in Bristol, England yesterday. He was 86 years old. Neighbors of a giant granite boulder that was recently unearthed on Bloor Street are mounting a campaign to keep it in the neighborhood. The 2,000-kilogram rock was found in July when construction crews began digging up the ground near the corner of Major Street and Bloor Street West. The massive stone is estimated to be about 1 billion years old. It's scheduled to be moved about 200 meters away to a parquet that's under construction at Howland Avenue and Bloor Street West. And neighbors aren't happy about that. They've launched a letter-writing campaign to the local Business Improvement Association, and they also have plans to start a petition. The BIA, though, says the parquet on Howland Street is the only one big enough to accommodate the stone. Amanda Welton is back now with our extended forecasts and hoping that this rain tapers off and then we have a perfect sunny sunshine week again.
Maybe by Monday. Okay. Thunderstorms in the region. We are seeing some of that energy throughout the rest of our afternoon as well as into Sunday. We already kind of mentioned that. But a main factor in these storms will be the heavy downpours of rain. And if you were driving downtown Toronto as they were passing by, you definitely noticed. You probably also noticed the humidex values, and that's what you're looking at here. This is what we call PWAT, precipitable water, the amount of water in the atmosphere that can fall as rain. Now, the blue that you're seeing, that dark blue hue, it doesn't necessarily mean cold. It just means dry air. And that humidity is expected to break as that cold front moves on through by Monday morning. So Monday morning starting off a little humid, and then into the day we will dry out just a touch. So with that thunderstorm energy in the mix, it won't be just a Saturday but also a Sunday story. And then it's not just lake breezes, it's also the cold front that moves on through for the morning hours. So the morning hours Monday could also see some thunderstorms in the region. This is what our risk map looks like. Toronto, you definitely are in that severe possible risk, and that is because of our location near the lakes, and then as well this mesoscale system that is moving up from stateside, currently tracking on through Illinois, and it's going to be packing quite a punch, bringing some heavy downpours of rain. Whether it makes its way up to Toronto or not, we will have to see. Now our temperatures look something like this Sunday morning, feeling like 20 degrees for Toronto. Sunday heating up to 26, feeling like 34. The humidex values are definitely still in place here, and as we move through our Sunday evening forecast, you are seeing some storms ahead of that cold front, and then we will be nice and clear. So the question that Talia was asking, when will we have some sunshine again, guaranteed? Well, we are looking at Tuesday to see some of those bright blue skies. So that's for you, Talia.
Not bad. Thanks, Amanda.
No problem.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks for watching. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. And as we leave you, here are some of the sights and sounds from the 19th Annual Chinatown Festival on Spadina. It runs until tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Good night.
Mandarin and Cantonese.